afternoon, Prof. Ivan and everyone. We are from Group 3 would like to present our result of our mini research entitled The Process of Self-Directed English Language Learning of Pronunciation Using Scaffolded Assignment in English Phonetic and Phonology course. But before we begin, please allow us to introduce our group members. My name is Arzena Shafira.
My name is Shopia Maharani Zahra.
My name is Davina Ardelia Reva.
In this study, we investigated how second semester English education students improve their English pronunciation through self-directed learning supported by scaffolded assignments in the Phonetics and Phonology course. Specifically, we examined three main aspects: the students' pronunciation profile, the effectiveness of the scaffolded assignments, and the self-directed learning process students used to overcome pronunciation problems. So let's moving on to the methodology. This mini research project explores the process of self-directed English pronunciation learning through narrative inquiry, utilizing both introspective and retrospective approach. Narrative inquiry is a qualitative research methodology that seeks to understand human experiences by collecting, analyzing, and interpreting the personal stories and narratives of individuals. In the studies, narrative inquiry was implemented through two complementary processes, which is introspective and retrospective. Now let's move on to the problem 1 of the data. The student's English pronunciation profile on the final date. After completing all of the scaffolded assignments from Jelajah Pustaka 1 to 6, the students performed the final date pronunciation recording. The comprehensive recording covered a wide range of English sound and feathers, it including vowels, diphthongs, triphthongs, consonants, consonant clusters, stress, intonation, junctures, assimilation, elision, linking, naturalization, and weak forms. So moving on to the overall results are very positive. The average pronunciation accuracy across all students reached 87%, which is categorized as excellent. A considerable number of them obtained perfect scores of 100% in several categories such as intonation, diphthongs, consonant clusters, linking, and also naturalization. Most students also perform strongly in vowels, diphthongs, and elision. However, some challenges still remain. The most difficult areas for the students were weak forms with an average accuracy of only 66%, assimilation in 61%, and linking, which had the lowest average at just 38%. Looking up to the table of the group result in more detail in lampiran, in group 1, the final net scores were 88% for Alda, 91% for Saskia, 93% for Adistia. In group 2, the final net scores were 93% for Davina, 88% for Akda, and 91% for Shakila. Meanwhile, in group 3, the final net scores range from 73% for Rihanna, 83% for Dewi, 88% for Tiara, and 90% for Arzena. Overall, these final net results demonstrate that after completing the scaffolded learning process, the majority of students have successfully reached a high level of pronunciation proficiency. That is all for problem 1. Now, I would like to pass the presentation to Davina, who will explain the problem 2. Please, Davina.
Okay, thank you, Arzena. Can we move to lampiran for problem 2? Lampiran. Okay. In problem 2, we were required to conduct a research on the effectiveness of scaffolded assignment. To collect the data, students were asked to complete a questionnaire. However, since the questionnaire was administered at the end of the semester, there was a possibility that students might not accurately remember their experiences. Therefore, we also use the weekly progress reports to support and validate the questionnaire result. For this reason, we include the scaffolding table while taking the weekly progress data into consideration. The purpose was to identify which scenes were perceived as effective and which still needed improvement. Based on the table, most students reported that the scaffolding method helped them throughout the learning process. However, several scenes were still identified as having issues. For example, in Jelajah Pustaka 4, part 1, Jelajah Pustaka 4, part 2, part since 3C, table 1, since 3C, table 2, Jelajah Pustaka 3, table 3, Jelajah Pustaka 5, table 3, Jelajah Pustaka 6, table 1, Jelajah Pustaka 3, since 3.1, since 3.1, table 2, and lastly, Jelajah Pustaka 4, part 1. The student indicated that they needed more hands-on practice to reinforce the theoretical concept. Some students also reported that they were still confused even after completing the scenes. In addition to the scaffolding table and weekly progress reports is the final assessment. Result also demonstrate how this method supported student learning. As mentioned earlier, all students showed improvement in their pronunciation profiles, indicating that the scaffolding method was effective. The next problem, problem 3, my friend Sophia will explain it.
Okay, so in the problem 3, we can also see that so many students are struggle with some vowels and diphthongs, and then assimilation, and the solution are many of them is practice their speaking or pronunciation. So we can see in the and that's our problem 3 or problem solution. So many E-level students encounter significant difficulties with vowel sounds, particularly in distinguishing similar phonemes such as E and E. This challenge often stems from insufficient familiarity with the precise mouth and lip positioning required for accurate production. The primary solution involves systematic practice to develop muscle memory or combined with regular exposure to native speaker models through listening activities. So we can also see that on diphthongs, students frequently product them in a manner that sounds unnatural or struggle to differentiate between sounds like a than e. And then we can also see in weak forms, students tend to rely excessively on strong forms due to lack of familiarity, which affect the natural rhythm of speech. On assimilation, causes difficulty due to subtle guides involved, leading to unnatural pronunciation, producing Jew instead of chun. Students improve by listening more attentively to distinguish and find differences and engaging in intensive practice. And finally, problems with junctures often relate to unfamiliarity with EIPA symbols, particularly for students encountering them for the first time. So this challenge diminishes as learners become more accustomed to the symbols through continued instruction and exposure. Overall, the recurring pedagogical solution across all categories is deliberate, repetitive practice supported by extensive listening to native speaker, which helps students internalize accurate and pronunciation patterns. So for the result is students' pronunciation demonstrates significant improve between the first day and final day assignment. On the first day, we can see that students' average pronunciation accuracy is at 80%, which is already an excellent score. However, at the end of this course, students need to take a retest called final date in the end of the semester. And the results shows that the average student accuracy increased by 6.5%, which is became 87%. And yeah, this improvement really shows that students try to correct their previous mistake from first day. Students' improvement comes from assignment they do the whole English, phonetics, and phonology course. And based on scaffolding assignment, data shows information about which scenes that most likely help students in their self-directed learning or not. With this information, it can be used to revise the scene so it becomes more effective. And to support the validity of this questionnaire, students are applied to keep notes of their struggle every week during a whole semester. By the end of the semester and the time to fill the questionnaire, the students have notes of information to support it. And other than that, the assignment in introspective and retrospective also made students know their mistakes and came up with their own solution. And then overall, the combination of scaffolding assignment, weekly progress, and introspective, then retrospective reflection helps students become more confident and aware about their pronunciation. As a result, their speech become clear and more accurate by the final date as they grow increasingly familiar with English phonetic patterns and connected speech patterns. And the conclusion is improving English pronunciation through learning with a self-direct method really opens the opportunities for the student to actually learn. The assignment are given with a structured concept, allowing students to learn by themselves while keeping track to the materials. And this method enhance students' understanding and speaking skills. Other than that, students also become aware of their mistake. Eventually, students came up with a solution that fits them personally. The purpose of research is to know the effectiveness of these self-direct methods. And the result of this mini research is showing that using the self-direct method is improve the overall student's profile and their understanding is effective. Our research provides the data of average improvement of the student. In addition, our study provides with which categories students struggle the most or less based on the first date, final date, questionnaires, scaffolding, weekly progress, introspective and retrospective assignment. And in in conclusion, the self-direct method is quite effective for people who want to improve their English skills. So this is the reference that we use for this mini research. And this is the whole result. So that's all from from us. Thank you so much, Prof. Ivan. And yeah, good afternoon.